What is going on YouTube? Run Against Sports back here with another video. Today is our Vikings off-season review, our second NFL off-season review video, and we got a lot to talk about. The Vikings, an interesting year last year, really a start to a new year for them, and they were pretty good, but they definitely could have been better. But I still think that they had a pretty decent season, and with that being said, follow our social media pages at rungun_sports on Instagram, at rungunsports on TikTok, and like, subscribe, share any video you want. And the NBA playoffs still going on right now. The Atlanta Hawks barely defeated the 76ers 109 to 106, and then the Clippers defeated the Utah Jazz 119 to 111. So both the Hawks and the Clippers lead 3 games to 2. And then on Thursday, the Bucks defeated the Nets, and we'll have a game 7 with that score being 104 to 89. And tonight, the 76ers Hawks game 6, and the Hawks win it. They go on to the Eastern Conference Finals to face either the Bucks or the Nets. And then the Clippers versus Jazz. If the Lakers win, then they are in the if the Clippers win, they are in the Western Conference Finals versus the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns will be without Chris Paul due to some close contact COVID rule. And so, with that being said, let's get right into the video. With the Vikings, the 2020 record was 7-9. All but 3 losses were to playoff teams, so 2/3 of their losses were to playoff teams, and that's very good. And they won the games that they should have won, and for only having three losses being to playoff teams is not bad at all. And I think that they took care of business. And I said this about the Lions, they won the games that they should have won, and they're all but those 3 games that they lost, maybe they should have won, but they lost to the 49ers, and the Cowboys were 2 of those teams. And so that's not a 2 horrible teams. I mean, the 49ers, they made the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. So, and they had a lot of injuries, and so same with the Cowboys. Obviously, with Dak Prescott being out, the Cowboys are definitely not the same without Dak Prescott. So I was honestly very impressed with the Vikings record. And yeah, so Kirk Cousins is one of the guys that a lot of people look at as overrated and whatnot, and just mediocre. And in my opinion, it's a fair statement if you don't really pay attention to him. But I got him on my fantasy team for 1 week, and he went off. He had an insane game, and on the season he had 4,265 yards, 35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, 63.2 QBR. Now the 4,265 yards is very impressive, along with the 35 touchdowns, 8th in yards, 6th in touchdowns, and that's very solid. That's top 10 in the league, and a league with many quarterbacks. But then you look at the interceptions, 13, tied for 31st. That's horrible. And I think a lot of people will say, well, he's a mediocre quarterback. He should or he's an NFL quarterback. He shouldn't be 31st in interceptions. Shouldn't be almost last in interceptions. And I think that's a fair point. But also at the same time, there's a lot of people who call Kirk Cousins mediocre. And so I think that's obviously worse than mediocre, and he needs to work on turning the ball over less and through the air. But he's also not supposed to be in the top half of the league in interceptions if people claim he's mediocre. So that's kind of my whole stance on the 30 being ranked 31st in interceptions. And he's also 18th in the league in QBR. I think that's just about where he stacks up overall as a quarterback in the league, maybe a little higher. And I think He's a very talented player, and he's only 32 years old. So we'll see. And he's got some young receivers. Justin Jefferson, who in my opinion should have won the Rookie of the Year award with 88 receptions, 1,400 yards, which ranked fourth in the NFL as a rookie. Arguably a top five receiver as a rookie with a league that is stacked with receivers, and only 7 touchdowns though, tied 22nd in the NFL, and then 88 receptions were tied 15th. So he's in the front half in the NFL for most of his stats. And then you look at Adam Thielen, who had a very quiet, good year, 74 receptions. That was 27th in the league. 925 yards, 26th in the league. But 14 touchdowns, ranked third in the NFL. And that's very solid and very impressive as well. So I think that, they're towards the bottom half of the league in stats, but it's also not at the quarterback position where you only have, each team has one guy and at the receiver position you have three, maybe four, starting receivers. And I think that having two of those guys just means you already have a deadly wide receiver combo, and I think that that's very promising for Kirk Cousins, and I think that that's going to help him uh, progress in his career and get even better. With just having those two guys around him is really going to help him a lot more than if he had, some not very good receivers. Because if you put him on a team with bad receivers, I don't know how well he'd do. I don't think he'd do that well at all. And he is pretty fortunate to have a decent O-line. Not the greatest, but a decent O-line. Talking about the free agency now, Patrick Peterson coming over from the Arizona Cardinals, cornerback, a huge pickup. And, the Vikings defense struggled a bit, and I don't think they struggled too bad. And they weren't horrible, but they weren't good. And, on the spectrum, they were bad, but they weren't terrible or anything like that. And I think that they were bad, and obviously it's probably the reason they lost some games. But at the same time, I think that they're working on it big time in their front office, and all these guys that they've signed from free agency have been defensive guys. Sheldon Richardson, defensive line from the Browns, huge pickup as Jadeveon Clowney takes over his spot in Cleveland, and one of the more interesting moves I've seen in this free agency. Mackenzie Alexander, cornerback from the Bengals, a young talent who could be around for a few years and could be mentored by Patrick Peterson. Bashaud Breeland, cornerback from the Chiefs, who had some incredible plays in the playoffs versus the Cleveland Browns in the AFC divisional round. Very young talent as well, who can also be mentored by Patrick Peterson. But you also remember they have Harrison Smith and Eric Kendricks out there, who are both very solid players themselves. And then Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive lineman from the Giants, coming over, decently young guy, and he'll be very good with that team. And Xavier Woods, safety from the Cowboys, a very strong playmaker, so a very good move. Talking about their losses in the free agency this year, Kyle Rudolph, tight end to the Giants, a decent loss, but at the same time, you got to remember they have tight end Irv Smith Jr., a very young player who had a very good year last year, with Kyle Rudolph playing all the games as well. So I think he'll do very well as the number one tight end and not having to split the reps with other people. And I think that will go a long way towards his career and towards his stats this upcoming next year. And moving on to the draft class, round one, Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. And I would have liked to see the Vikings pick up a weapon. And, I think that I don't think this is definitely a bad pick or anything. I just think that they need a weapon. They have Dalvin Cook, but I just think like a defensive guy, a solid defense guy, but there wasn't many of those guys going in the first round. Or they really need cornerbacks, and excuse me, the only guys going in the first round were cornerbacks that were like your solid first round talent players. And they signed three cornerbacks, signed a safety in the offseason: Patrick Peterson, Mackenzie Alexander, Bashaud Breeland, Xavier Woods. And so I think that pick is not bad at all. I just would have liked to see him pick up a good defensive guy, but obviously there was no one available for that need, and all so that works in a way, and it will protect Kirk Cousins as he gets older in age, and I think that will help out a lot. But talking about Kirk Cousins even more, round 3 they picked up Kellen Mond, a pick I really like. I don't know how well Kellen Mond will do in the NFL, and he really wasn't that good at college, and it just seemed like he was there forever, in my opinion. And I think that it's a good pick, a good backup, but I don't think Kellen Mond can be an NFL starter. But he'll be mentored by Kirk Cousins, a guy who's been around for a while, so I think that will definitely help. 2021 projection for the Minnesota Vikings. I think that they can go 9-8. Definitely think that they have a positive future and that they can build off of a decent year last year and build off a foundation that has already been set in stone from the team. That will wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Thank you guys so much for watching.